Palad podcast.
Okay.
Yeah, we are now in Oslo. Me, Jaana Partanen, and
Heikki Lamusuo.
from Palad and Partanen Lamusuo. But who you are? Tell us.
We will. I am Gaute Grønmo.
And I'm Herman Hagelsteen, and we are two partners at Nielstorp Arkitekter, a Norwegian architectural practice based here in Oslo. We're 6 partners who run the office, and we do all kinds of projects, but primarily they tend to be on the larger end of the scale. We do large refurbishment of building blocks. We do area planning, urban planning, but we also do smaller projects. We tend to think of ourselves as a project that specializes in, say, architecture that take the human scale into account. We're very aware of the fact that whether our project is large or small, it's going to be used by people. And that's a philosophy we apply whether we design here in Oslo or elsewhere in Norway or in Europe, or if you build like a very large project in, say, Shanghai. A couple of years back, we finished the headquarters for Shanghai. China Eastern Airlines in Shanghai, a very large building that comprises of 245,000 square meters. It's I think on a daily basis there's 12,000 people working going through that building complex every day, and that makes us even more focused on the fact that people are using all our buildings. So as a practice, that's something that we care very deeply about, and that goes whether it's a small like extension to a building that we sometimes do, to a very large urban planning project that we also do.
Yeah, that was, we were looking your website before coming here in Norway, and we noticed that this scale is always for the human, and there's lots of nature around, and this feeling you are talking about also this empathic thing, and that's something what we love to do in empathic footprint. We have this kind of word we have been using in our philosophy. And of course we are tiny company compared your company and your scale, what you are doing. We have done big projects also, but not as big as you. But in any way, there's all we notice this really this inside your work, and that's it was very exciting also to find your philosophy in the same things we are doing in Finland.
That's why I'm asking you how you can keep that human aspect when you are doing so big projects, big buildings and big areas, and how you do it, how you manage to do it.
It's probably meaningful to say that it comes down to a couple of specific considerations that can be described quite directly. For instance, knowledge of the relation between the height of, say, for instance, 2 facades and the distance between them. That is the shape of the intersection between these 2 facades. There we more or less mean to know in this company what kind of intersections feel good to walk in. This is quite ancient knowledge, I guess. Principles like that are actually the reason why the roof architecture in Paris has recesses on the tallest buildings in the streets, so that the street will not have a too high and narrow intersection, feel too dark, So that's just one thing that has to do with human scale. And then there's another recurring theme. We know that the human mind doesn't like to know too much about where it's going all the time. We don't like to pass straight facades that are more than, say, 30, 40 meters without something happening in the course of that facade. If we take it one scale up and we're moving through more or less like a village or a small housing community, then we know that you're very unlikely to use a meeting place that's more than 400 meters away from where you live. So you need to have a hierarchy of meeting places a little bit spread out. We also know that it's exciting for a human to, this is quite natural, I guess, to wonder what's around the next bend. So we make, again, in small housing projects, for instance, we also in big office projects, we make the corridors, perhaps they make a little turn, so you can't see all the way through them when you start. You're sort of eagered on by the architecture, and the architecture then feeds your imagination a little bit and tickles you in ways that we hope feels pleasant. And yeah, these were 3 or 4 quite down-to-earth examples, really, that anyone could use, but you sort of need to have them high up in your mind, always when designing.
A lot has to do with also, I guess, that a sense of urgency or being aware of what you're designing should not be alienating to us as people. You have many examples of modern architecture that has a generic, repetitive grammar to how the facade is composed. And what you then have is something that we don't naturally can relate to. So if you have a keen awareness in how you can break up those facades that Gaute was talking about earlier, already there, just that one little thing there, you're starting to make or shape an environment that we as people can relate to. So the question is not so much whether things are small or big, it's more about how you perceive that built environment.
Yeah, it sounds good, that idea that empathic scale is not that. It's empathic thing can be big or small. It's how do you design it. But I think it's like our company is quite small, and we are like main designers. If we do furnitures or architecture or whatever or public art, it's like in our strategy to be in empathic mood is that we are in a way we are like actors, that we are thinking how to be living, or how is to be cleaning woman, or what is if customer is, how to be in customer, and what is feeling to be owner of the house, who is putting money for that. So we are like we are putting us in like a role of actors in a way. And the main thing I think what we are doing is when we are thinking one project, if it is furniture or something, that we want to use it ourselves. We want to go in those places we have done or use those furnitures in a public place. So that's the way how we can be in the mood of the empathic. And then because we are like main designers and we are doing all our project, so then we can tell and go for this project with our workers. But that's when you are a big company, how do you find all those workers that you can be in that kind of working process, that all those workers, because you are bigger company than we. Did you get what I was?
Certainly. This is probably one of the biggest challenges for any architectural office with a characteristical design philosophy. And I guess we can't pretend to have found the exact key to how that happens, but part of it is just to be here, collaborate on projects when you start here as an employee, and then absorb that knowledge that we're supposed to carry on, deliver to the employees. And it's now these days not a very one-person oriented office. It's supposed to be architecture that emerges as the best product of a group of people's strengths. But this is an ongoing challenge, I would say, for us. Not easily done. I guess it's one of the things that we spend the most time on in the design process. But as you probably noticed, culture seeps into the walls at a place. You don't need to have a decades-long history in a company for this to happen. And from the walls, it seeps out again into the employees in all kinds of ways that are difficult to put into exact phrasing how it happens. I guess as you can hear, I'm quite curious myself about how how this is done most successfully.
Different people find different offices, and it's like it's same than in many times in some cafeteria. All people looks a little bit same kind of.
I think it's beneficial if you, as a company or as if you work with design, if you have a philosophy that you work after, I think it's beneficial if you're quite clear about your ideals. And as a company, we have very clear idea of what our design ideals are. And if you manage to project that to the outside world, then the people who want to work with you, they sign up for that philosophy, which means that the very capable, say in our situation, the very capable architects who wants to do something else, for example, who wants to do a different type of architecture, which of course can have lots of merit to it, then they know that maybe Nielstorp Architects is not for me, because I want to do huge skyscrapers, for example. Then you go to SOM in the US, because they are the best at skyscrapers. But if you say that the reason why I started architecture is because I want to build houses that relate to people, whether being big or small, then you might think that practice in Oslo, Nielstorp Architects, they do that, and they do it quite well. And they've been doing it for a very long time. So in our office, we have people from Japan, Scotland, New Zealand, Spain. One of our partners is Spanish, and he came from London with a very different background than other people in the office, but with the same idea that this philosophy resonates with me. So the benefit of being clear internally of what the sort of house project is quite clear. And then people can be very different. They can have very different approaches to how you deal with that, and that's when you get a great result. But if the core philosophy is very clear, then that's what you can start having very exciting outcomes, but with a very clear mission at the same time. And that's what we're trying to do here. So that's why, for example, whether we design a small, say, cabin in the southern coast of Norway, or whether we design a very large headquarter in a major city in Europe, the philosophy can be the same, because we design in the end of the day for people anyways. And different thematics, but the same principle goes.
And I think that was the reason why we contacted you to make this podcast also, because we realized that you have a really clear philosophy that is under your practice. So that's why we are here.
Oh,
so
it's working.
It's working, yes.
And I think also it's good for the customers also. When principles and philosophy is something clear, and when you are looking the things what have done before, it's easy to come customers also to talk with you. I think it's same with us, because we have also very same things. But I think it's easy for the customers. Then they know what they are coming to get.
Right.
Even every project is different, because I think for you also it's very important that what is the landscape and what is the other things around you are going to build.
What would you say is your characteristic, your clear mission when you approach furniture design, for example?
Well, I think our mission is to make this world better. And and the architecture or art or the design is just like a tool to make that dream come true.
Right.
So we are helping our customers to create spaces where the people can meet naturally and be what they are naturally. And that's why we like to do this design very like for everyone, like design for all shapes and sizes, like we say it in our websites. But it's like we also think that the philosophy is the most important paste for our work, and we will and we want to do our best to make this better world. So it's so simple. Yes, I think.
And we have been thinking, I think all our carry, that we are empathic designers, and we are helping people to feel better. We are serving people like doctors are serving or waiters are serving. We are also service
Practice.
We have a service job. So that's and our dream is to make our customers' dream come true, and then we are happy. So that's how we work. And like I said, this empathic is super important for us, that we can feel what people are feeling in those places, what we are doing in some way, connecting and working with that. So that's and because we are almost 60 years old now, both. Then we have like main things what we want to do. We want to do of course, exciting projects, but with nice people and nice customers. And those kind of works will come true, that not those that will stop, but those we want to see beforehand quite well, that those will come in reality also. So that's how we, and we want to be happy.
No,
When we are when we are working or when we are free time.
So this is empathy in the broadest sense, both for yourself and the customer and the world and the other users of the architecture. And not self-serving, self-sufficient architecture with design for the sake of the design itself. That, I guess, resonates very well, with us and seems to be, or maybe you could call it a core value in Scandinavian architecture, maybe especially in Finnish architecture, the way we read it, which is also why we're quite influenced, as I mentioned before we started here, by, well, everything we've seen in Finland through the decades, actually. Very little of Finnish architecture is iconic in that self-serving sense, wouldn't you say? How does it look from inside Finland?
Well, somehow we see. I don't know how Jaana, but somehow I feel that it's too tight box, the architecture, what we are doing in Finland. We should be more free. And when we are here in Oslo, we saw so many different kind of things that it's more richer, the architecture is richer. But why it's richer, I don't know. But anyhow, what we saw, it's much more richer, and that's a good thing.
You feel that the design language in Finland is more stringent, more sort of, in a way, more professionalized maybe, and then it is more playful architecture in Oslo?
The thing is, Finnish architecture is the same way as Danish architecture, an established sort of world export, So maybe one gets a little bit cautious about changing it too much, which is certainly the case in Denmark, where they make very disciplined, but perhaps sometimes a little bit too similar buildings, could be said. I guess you could grow overly cautious when you carry the heritage from Aalto, etc. So perhaps that's what you're reading into it. What we see is, of course, the best of the best in the magazines. We're not there, so.
How do you think we have done more than 20 years public artworks and facades and what the building has needed, or inside also, is that that kind of public artwork something could be in that empathic way?
Absolutely. I was actually thinking about that earlier when you were talking about how ideally your work results in people connecting, and it has a positive effect on people who interacts with them. And if you can create, say in your case, if you can create, be it furniture or architectural projects or art installations that people connect through or over, you've achieved something fantastic, right? And the same, one of the ideals that we go after when we design architecture is also not only just looking at the building, but also the spaces between our buildings. Because we think that is as important. That's where people walk, that's what people use, right? And in those public areas between the buildings, they are super relevant to how you are perceiving your surroundings when you walk between them, and how you deal with these social meeting spaces that you have in the voids between the built environment. That's quite important. And then, for example, like pieces like public art, how you place them and how you decorate or how you cater for human interaction in those voids. That's extremely relevant, and that's something we pay quite a lot of attention to, actually. And since you're here, I would like to extend an invitation that we should collaborate on how to deal with this open areas outside our buildings that we actually are thinking about as much often as the building in itself. We should pay as much attention to what happens on the outside and what happens on the inside, because both are part of the same in a way. They're both part of the same urban fabric. That's something that we think is super, super interesting.
Yeah, we have done, for example, 2 huge public artworks in 2 different hospitals, and it's I think it's quite good way to make also this building for the people who are working in that building, because those both buildings were big ones, and we were using in that Kuopio hospital, we were using in those pictures, the doctors in that hospital took inside the people.
Oh.
Microscope.
Right.
And those are tiny, but we made one program in computer, and now those are huge ones, and we use it also almost the same colors than doctors and now I don't remember the word, tutkijat, investigators were using. Because of course, when someone is taking pictures inside of you, doctors, they want that there's nothing wrong, but they need some kind of colors that they see what is inside. Right. So we use that same colors, but now it's like 1,600 square meters big. And all is inside the body.
Oh, fantastic!
Yeah, and you can see through the windows. So there's almost 160 windows, and every window is inside. You look like a piece of art, but outside it's one big building, and so it was also this. That now all those workers, when they go, they know pictures are in our hospital, and it's like it's more personal for those people, and also because customers, they know, oh my God, this is inside of me, but it's so beautiful. It's like a part of the nature. It's not so frightened. The building. So I think it's one way also to make this, like hospital is always afraid place you are afraid to go. Someone is in problem.
Yeah, so you're saying art could have the ability to make a hospital less as such a unwanted place to be in, but you can make it into something else. So it's actually a place for curing and helping people. And if you can make the social public areas of a hospital a bit more, welcoming or personal, or a bit more of an interesting place with different connotations than a place of emergency, I guess then you sort of start doing something that's interesting.
And also those workers, doctors who are working inside this building, they are so proud of it because those pictures are made by them. So they can say, okay, that's the
perhaps mine
this picture there.
Didn't you also use a similar technique for your furniture where you have a projection?
Yes, exactly. That's the same, but it's scaled small, right, because it was
3-story high building.
Yeah, but we had to do quite a lot things because there were those window holes and raster. So we used AE.
Have you used a lot of public art in your buildings already, or is it like not so common here in
No, it's
Norway?
quite common. Yes, absolutely. It very often comes naturally if the size allows it. Then you should use art in your projects, right?
But we also made integrated art in projects down to 10 square meters, you know, such as the boathouse. I mean,
yeah, we had a very fun. We had a very fun project last year. So last year we had at one point we had like the on our website we have the most current projects first, and the two projects that were on top were one project that was 28,000 square meters, which was a large commercial building, and then the second project was one of 10 square meters, which was a conversion of a boathouse that we did. So we do all kinds of sizes, and for that boathouse, which is one of those gifts you get as an architect. So sometimes you get these silly projects coming along where we converted a boathouse into a bar.
basically a bar.
And then we had this collaboration with a great friend of mine who's also a British artist called Gavin Mitchell, who's a London-based artist who made this fantastic art piece that sits on the back.
It is a multi-layered glass painting that also serves as the backsplash of the kitchen, the surface that protects the walls from water and grease, you know. So it's a perfect integration, and it's a perfect example of art being integrated into an essential building part, like you do yourself, to utilize the windows and say what can we do with them and how can we use them as you did in this hospital project as almost a metaphor for the entire body, where each single window, as I understood it, is a small part of the microscopic image, and then the whole building shows the whole of it, you know. So yeah,
We think it's super important to make our buildings, you know, of a high quality from an architectural point of view. They should also be exciting to use, but one very important feature is that they should also be commercially viable. Our task as architects is to make sure that we can, you know, tick all boxes, if you like, that we can make something that has those qualities that we've been talking about so far, but also that they can be successful as a development, that they also fulfill that other purpose. And I think that's sometimes a little bit under-communicated, how the one doesn't cancel the other, that you can still be very, have high artistic goals at the same time as you can deliver a product that's also commercially viable. And I think that goes from, like, for architects and also for designers and especially furniture designers. If you make a piece of furniture that's not going to sell or is difficult to produce, have you then really done a good job? You know, like you need to be able to make it work in all those areas in order for it to be a good product. So we try to be quite clear on when depends on the client, depends on their budget, depends on what they want to do. We try to have very sort of good open discussions, like what do you want? What do you want us to do for you? Because we can basically deliver on any scale. It's not the sexiest subject, to put it that way. You know, people don't want to talk about the financial aspects of what we do. People want to talk about, say, the more fascinating aspect of sort of the artistic side of the end result. But if the end result doesn't comply with the financial aspects of it, then you're not going to do it again. Yeah, for example, if you make a project that allows for great social interaction, people are really going to enjoy working there. If it's for example, like an office complex that you're creating. And then, if people really like working there, the value is going to go up. So that investment you did in making those or allowing for those conditions to come into place, like those social meeting places, for example, that's not immediately going to give you more rent, but they are in other ways. If you allow for those things, if you allow for, say, us to play with that, you know, and give you that product as a client, then you have something that's going to be both interesting and commercially viable. And that's where also art comes in. If you actually do make that investment into, say, art installations or certain artistic ambitions to come into fruition, if you do that the right way, and you do that in a sort of like a smart manner, so that you don't buckle under financially in the process, then you start ticking all those boxes that I mentioned earlier, and then that's the key in a way.
And if we are thinking about future in a little bit more far away, we are now worried about the nature situation, and all sources are getting less and less, and electricity is super expensive now, for example, in Finland. And we are building buildings, and it might be that in the future we have to use our buildings 24 hours per day, because now is this situation that we have lots of buildings empty half of the day. And it might be that in the future we should start think about it now, that we can use spaces
24/7.
Yeah, that's super interesting.
Yeah, but how we can do that, and that's one reason, for example, in our furnitures that you can use those in many ways,
Right.
because we think that all spaces should be like that those can change if the customer or user need it in different purpose.
If you are using the same space for different purposes, so the change has to be very easy, or actually, if it's possible, it's the most ecological solution also. If you can change the space and for a different function, or you can use the furniture for different functions. And so also it means that you will use that space or that furniture longer. So, and we think that the most ecological space or most ecological furniture is that you are using a long time, that you are taking care of. So when you like something, you start to take care of it. Or is it space or building or furniture? And it becomes somehow your friend. You take care of, you clean it, you do all the things that it lasts. So if we can make people reacting for the spaces or the objects, furnitures like that they feel that they are mine or they are very important for me. So I don't know, is it something that we can start thinking more and more? But
and that's something we deal with quite a lot. Exactly, it's exactly that. How can something that is a office by day be something else by night? Or how can something that is a say an office canteen be an event space at night? How can we sort of start using our buildings throughout the day in a more efficient or in more sort of durable way than we do now? I think that's a super interesting topic, and how we cater for that. It's very relevant. And I guess the same with furniture, or the same with art, or the same with like anything that we make, is that how do we make them for a long time? How do we make them stand the test of time again? You know, like for example, the chairs that you're sitting in, they are so-called design icons. They feel current. They feel up to speed with like living in today, but they're actually more than 30 years old. You know, never know. Then it's not like that's sustainability for you. You know, because they're going to be here for another 30 years if we can manage to make them not fall apart, which we're doing our best not to. Like they can live a very long life, and I think that's the approach we should have to basically everything we design or make as humans. Is this being made for a very long time, or we just make this to sort of satisfy some urgent need here and then? I think the way of thinking should be more in line with how we traditionally did think as people when resources were scarce. You made something to, you know, last a lifetime because you're dependent on it. And now, you know, with the ecological interesting challenge we have on our hands, we do actually depend on it. The earth actually depends on us making smart decisions that that will be with us for a very long time. So that's something that we take very seriously at Nielstorp.
And actually, this is one way to make designers immortality. When the things will last long time, we can leave our empathic footprint and design for the people who are coming after us.
That is the secret dream of all architects, I guess. You know, so or outspoken, yes.
But hey, it has been so nice to talk with you. Thank you for you. We could come here, and it was very exciting because we did this in English.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming.
Palad Podcast.